Although the Devises Police's specific baby rape fraternity is the Labyrinth cult, this interconnects with another network that is a fraternity that the butchers of Walter Rose and Sons Butcher Shop are initiates of, and this is known as a German secret order known as the Blutordnung, i.e. the Blood Order. So it's interesting to consider indeed this is a slaughterhouse network, and the Blutordnung has networks in Caen, also part of the old bloodlines of Harris's factory abattoir workers. So it's very interesting to consider indeed the Blutordnung operating out of Devizes via networks of Walter Rose and Sons Butcher Shop Butchers is basically an Anglo branch of a German secret order that basically engages in ritual sacrifice, mainly of mental patients. Indeed, the main target of the Blutordnung is mental patients. It is interesting to consider indeed all this interlinks with anti-Semitic concepts also prevalent among the neo-Nazi networks of modern Europe and Britain. Indeed, it's all very interesting to consider that the main targets of the Blutordnung are highly intelligent mental patients. So it's interesting, in terms of occult sacrifice, highly intelligent mental patients are measured on a similar wavelength to highly intelligent Hebrews. Indeed, it's interesting to consider that in the occult networks, the sacrifice of a highly intelligent mental patient is the same or even more than the sacrifice of a highly intelligent Hebrew. So it's all very interesting to consider the theories behind these occult sacrifices and the supposed occult power that the sacrificer gains from the sacrifice of the innocent intelligent mental patient or the innocent intelligent Hebrew. Indeed, it's interesting to note that highly intelligent mental patients, i.e. the 20 to 30% of mental patients that are of a higher stage of evolution, as theorized by Itzhak Bentov, are considered highly valuable for occult sacrifices. So it's interesting to consider this and what this all means. Indeed, die Blutordnung, i.e. the fraternity that the butchers of Walter Rose and such butcher shop belong to, is operated from Leipzig by DVD networks connected to SS Obergruppenführer Dietrich Kammler, who has popped up numerous times in this study. This faction of the DVD, coordinated by Dietrich Kammler, i.e. the Steppenwolf faction, are operative in the Anglosphere, attempting to basically weaponize autism for utilizing autistic people who I do not consider part of the 20 to 30% of highly involved mental patients. These autistic people are then utilized for psychological warfare operations on behalf of the DVD and for running sexploitation, child sexual exploitation, and child blackmail schemes, as well as the torture, abduction, and abuse of mental patients. Indeed, it's interesting to consider that one of the key targets of networks such as 764 and other Order of Nine Angles operations is mental patients. Indeed, all of these networks are interconnected to the Steppenwolf faction of the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst, which is one of the key factions coordinated by SS Obergruppenführer Dietrich Kammler, who is a Nazi bloodliner, basically. Indeed, the Kammler family were highly important to Nazi intelligence during the Second World War as overall coordinators of certain Sicherheitsdienst, i.e. SD factions, as well as broader SS intelligence operations. So it's interesting to consider indeed. This Kamla faction have several networks operating in eastern Ukraine via networks interconnected with maniac murder cult operations. So there is a British link there, a British police link, what with the maniac murder cult having many connections within Special Branch. So it's all very interesting to consider this overarching long-range Nazi penetration agenda of both the Western countries and the Russian Federation by Ukraine. So it's all very interesting to note the amount of neo-Nazi operations and syndicates being run in eastern Ukraine, such as the Azov Battalion, who are coordinated themselves by BND networks, i.e. Bundesnachrichtendienst networks. And indeed, the Bundesnachrichtendienst are coordinated by this neo-Nazi overarching syndicate, i.e. Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst networks. Through such networks, as the Order of Nine Angles, indeed, the Order of Nine Angles are a key interconnecting intelligence front operating in communion with Azov Battalion operatives. Indeed, Vermin, known to Kahn's focus Cassius Lynch or Cass Lynch, is a key operative of the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst in Kahn by the propaganda he puts out on his social media pages. So it's interesting to consider Vermin is protected by Order of Nine Angles operatives and a Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst license to operate. Therefore, he will not be arrested by Special Branch despite his posts contravening laws in Britain. Indeed, it's interesting to consider that Vermin has never been arrested. Whereas if I post anything at all contravening a law, I am immediately arrested. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, as I stated before, I believe Vermin is a bloodline member of the British royal family. So it's interesting to consider the fact that he's been able to rape, mutilate, starve, torture, and abuse and slaughter so many children and babies, but is still operating with a warrant of protection from the British police, which is all very interesting indeed. His network, his current network, is the Lighthouse network that are attempting to abduct me and basically sacrifice my brain in a way via a lobotomy, and then have me working for the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst factions interconnected with the British Crown. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. How does this network, the Lighthouse network of the Order of Nine Angles, interconnect with the Blutordnung? It's interesting to consider that the Blutordnung has many connections with the Order of Nine Angles through networks of one of the butchers, Jack Fletcher, who is chiefly operative as PC Jack Fletcher of Devises Police. So there is a lot of overlap between the Labyrinth cult of Devises Police and the Blutordnung of the Walter Rose and Sons Butchers Shop Butchers. So it's all interesting to consider the interconnectivity between all of these neo-Nazi satanic intelligence fronts, various illicit activities, and syndicate networks interconnected with these, such as Georgian mobsters operating out of Moscow, interestingly, who are heavily interconnected with the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst through the old networks of Lavrenti Beria's descendants. So it's all very interesting to consider these Georgian mob operations are entirely in the domain of Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst intelligence operatives. So it's all very interesting to consider this overarching link between post-Soviet mafiosi and the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst. So it's interesting indeed. It may even be stated that the entire syndicate network of the former Soviet Union are coordinated by the Steppenwolf faction, i.e. the networks of SS Obergruppenführer Dietrich Kammler. who is chiefly operative in this region to produce schizophrenic super spies in facilities such as the underground caverns beneath Roundway Asylum, attempting to create his own network of schizophrenic super spies that would operate for the Nazi regime, basically. Indeed, supposedly he's not having much luck because parapsychotics aren't on board with the Nazi agenda. Indeed, this is the thing. They always struggled with me. Despite in exterior fashion certain elements of the programming would show, they never managed to get control of my soul, which is all very interesting to consider. Indeed, the Nazis are attempting to shadow ban my videos because this exposure of Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst operations has been quite thorough. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, SS Obergruppenführer Dietrich Kammler has expressed a will that I be exterminated before I start talking about the interconnectivity between the Order of Nine Angles and the Knights of Malta. It's all very interesting to consider. The Knights of Malta have key interests within the Order of Nine Angles network. This all interlinks with the psychiatric establishment being run by hospitallers who are themselves Hitler faction, Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst operatives. So it's all very interesting to consider that the Order of Nine Angles are basically allowed in to mental hospitals to rape pretty young ladies and younger girls within the adolescent facilities as part of an overarching rape agenda that the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst are promoting. Indeed, all of this interconnects with the white jihad philosophies of the Order of Nine Angles and other networks such as Atomwaffen, Sonnenkrieg, and the National Action Networks. Indeed, all of these networks promote white jihad, whereby they advocate for the rape of all white women above the age of 11 to reproduce more white children for the new eon, basically, the idea of the new eon, which will basically be a Fourth Reich structure with Aryans coordinating everything and the eventual colonization of the cosmos by the Aryan race. It's interesting to consider that all of these networks base their theories in eugenics. However, they aren't evolved. That's what's interesting about this. Indeed, those of the higher stage of evolution are the 20 to 30% of mental patients, theorized by Itzhak Bentov. And Itzhak Bentov was an intelligent Hebrew, and he theorized this, and this would annoy the neo-Nazi networks, the fact that Itzhak Bentov, as an intelligent Hebrew, was theorizing that 20 to 30% of mental patients are the most evolved species. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst operatives are attempting to shut down this theory. So it's all very interesting to note. Indeed, I seem to have become a target of various Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst factions, including M-Gang, operating out of devices, who are a 764 satanic neo-Nazi cult network and are involved in child exploitation, sexual blackmail of children, and mass rape, torture, ritual abuse, starvation, neglect, and murder of children. As operatives interconnected with the Blutordnung, which operates out of Walter Rosenson's butcher shop, which is a key location of satanic ritual sacrifice, organized personally by Steppenwolf faction operatives of the DVD. Indeed, it does seem that this devices ring is a DVD ring, although there are other elements involved, such as MI6 and the neo-Nazi factions within the GRU. It's interesting to consider that this devices ring is an overarching Steppenwolf faction DVD operation. Indeed, so it's a black op by a transnational extraterritorial intelligence service that doesn't actually have a home nation, despite the majority of prominent operatives being German. And there are no records of this network. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, the intelligence services like to make this network out to be fictional, and therefore able to cast all researchers of it as cranks. However, it does exist. It's currently headquartered in Italy, interestingly. They keep switching around the headquarters. Indeed, there is a headquarters in Modena, in Italy, of the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst, coordinated by a bloodline descendant of SS operative Karl Wolf, who was notorious for the Operation Sunrise operation with Alan Dulles, who was himself chiefly a DVD operative as an Abwehr agent. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, it's interesting, these overlays between Anglo-American intelligence and the Nazis. Indeed, after the Second World War, the majority of Nazis were protected by Anglo-American intelligence as part of an overarching Cold War agenda. However, this allowed for the penetration of British, American, and French intelligence by German heritage operatives. And therefore, the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst was basically able to take over the entire Western intelligence structure. So it's very interesting to consider. Indeed, there are so many networks that interconnect with the DVD that it's possible to state that they control everything. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, this SS operative in Devices, who is an MI6 agent, Morgan Garland, is attempting to have me killed by Albanian, Romanian, and Georgian mobsters carrying out a combined hit on me in Warminster town centre. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, Morgan Garland keeps speaking to me in my head, attempting to basically push me off the trail of the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, as I stated, the butchers of Walter Rose and Sons Butcher Shop are part of the Blutordnung. And the Blutordnung is headquartered in Kaiserslautern in Germany. So it's interesting to consider the Blutordnung is a Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst overseen secret order. And it's interesting to consider that this is a rather strange fraternity operating out of the butcher shop. And they derive what they believe to be occult power of the murder of these Russian cosmic mental patients. And I stated before in another video that up to 10,000 are murdered in Devices every 4 to 6 years. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, this is an industrial scale extermination operation legitimized by the Russian state, especially by the GRU, to dispose of unwanted elements, i.e. the victims of parapsychological experiments. Indeed, many of these mental patients are actually bred in laboratories for this specific purpose as part of parapsychological and extraterrestrial experimentation by Russian scientists. It's interesting to consider this. Indeed, I also believe that there are children bred underneath Devices in the vaults and catacombs beneath Devices for ritual abuse purposes, rape, and sacrifice by the really disgusting population of that town who breed their own multitudes of children basically for a ritual sacrifice ring. As I stated, the meat of all the victims is sold in Walter Rose and Sons butcher shops as pork. Indeed, large percentages of the town of Devices are addicted to cannibal meat. So it's all very, very interesting to consider indeed. I'm going to leave it there now.